You spent $300 on a pressure canner. You read the 20-page USDA guide cover to cover. You sat next to that stove for 4 straight hours. And after all of that, you still weren't sure if the meat inside was actually safe to eat. But what if pressure was never the right answer? What if an Amish farmer in 1850 had no canner, no refrigerator, no electricity, and still kept meat safe for months through a Pennsylvania winter? He didn't use equipment. He used beef fat. And that method was quietly removed from every modern preservation guide, not because it stopped working, but because you can't sell it in a store. Welcome back to Forbidden Amish Roots. If you're done paying for tools you don't need, stick around, because today we're bringing this back. This technique didn't start with the Amish. It started in England, somewhere around the 1600s. Back then, every farmhouse had a crock of potted meat on the shelf. Not hidden away, not treated as survival food. It was just how people ate. Hannah Glass documented the method in 1747 in a book called The Art of Cookery, Made Plain and Easy. She described cooking meat thoroughly, packing it tight into a clay pot, and sealing the entire surface with a thick layer of rendered fat. That layer hardened into an airtight cap. Nothing got in, nothing got out. The method crossed the Atlantic with British settlers and took deep root in rural Pennsylvania communities, specifically among the Amish and Mennonite families who built their lives around self-sufficiency. These were not primitive people guessing at food safety. They were skilled tradespeople who understood one core principle. Removing oxygen stops most common rot, but it creates a new challenge. Anaerobic bacteria, specifically Clostridium botulinum, which thrives without air. During the American Civil War, Union Army records show that soldiers carried potted meat in their packs for weeks at a time without refrigeration. It was standard field ration practice. Every farmhouse knew this method. Every grandmother passed it to her daughter. It required no electricity, no pressure gauge, no specialized equipment. Just fire, fat, and patience. So how did a method this effective disappear from modern kitchens? It didn't disappear on its own. It was replaced, deliberately and methodically. In the 1950s, electric refrigerators went into mass production. The price dropped low enough that average households could finally afford one. Almost overnight, the cultural pressure to preserve food without refrigeration evaporated. Then came the canning industry. Companies like Ball and Kerr began heavily marketing glass jar canning through the 1960s and 70s. They sponsored home economics programs. They placed their guides in schools and county extension offices. Canning became the official language of food preservation in America. Then, in 1988, the USDA released an updated set of home food preservation guidelines. Those guidelines covered water bath canning. They covered pressure canning. They covered freezing and dehydration. Tallow preservation, potted meat, was not mentioned once, not flagged as unsafe, not debated, simply omitted. And when the modern prepper and homesteader movement grew in the 2000s, the resources they found pointed to one method above all others: pressure canning, a process that requires $150 to $300 in equipment, 4 hours of active time, precise altitude adjustments, and a margin for error that can result in botulism if you get it wrong. Nobody told you there was another way, not because that way failed, but because a jar of rendered beef tallow doesn't generate a product line, a YouTube sponsorship, or a retail shelf. Let's put this side by side so the picture is clear. To pressure can meat today, you need a quality pressure canner. That's $150 to $300. You need canning jars, lids, and rings, another $20 to $40 per batch. The process takes 3 to 4 hours of active work per session. You need to account for your altitude, adjust your pressure settings accordingly, and monitor the gauge the entire time. If your seal fails and you don't catch it, you are looking at a serious botulism risk. Now compare that to potting with tallow. Equipment cost: $0 if you have a pot and a glass jar. Tallow cost: roughly $2 to $4 per pound, often free if you ask a local butcher for suet. Active time: 45 minutes from start to finish. Skill level required: if you can cook a pot roast, you can do this. Shelf life at cool room temperature: 3 to 6 months without refrigeration. Shelf life in a root cellar or refrigerator: up to 1 year. The Amish didn't build a survival system around expensive equipment. They built it around knowledge. That knowledge is available to you right now. Here is exactly how you do this. You will need 2 pounds of beef, pork, or venison, 1 pound of beef tallow, rendered or store-bought, coarse salt and black pepper, dried herbs if you want them, thyme and rosemary work well, and clean, wide-mouth glass jars with lids. Start by cutting your meat into chunks, roughly 2 inches each. Season generously with salt and pepper on all sides. In a heavy pan over medium-high heat, sear the meat in batches until browned on all surfaces. Do not crowd the pan. You are building flavor and beginning the cooking process. Once seared, reduce the heat to low and cook the meat through completely. Internal temperature must reach 165 degrees Fahrenheit. Use a meat thermometer. This step is not optional. To tame this risk, we use a double barrier total heat to kill active cells and saturated fats plus cool storage to keep spores dormant. While the meat finishes cooking, begin melting your tallow in a separate small pot over low heat. Tallow melts at a low temperature. Do not overheat it. You want it fully liquid but not smoking. Now sterilize your jars. Wash them in hot, soapy water, rinse thoroughly, and let them air dry completely. Pack the cooked meat tightly into the jars, leaving about ½ inch of space at the top. Press the meat down firmly so there are no air gaps between pieces. Pour the liquid tallow slowly over the packed meat. Work it in carefully so it fills every gap and void between the pieces. Continue pouring until the tallow sits at least ¼ inch above the top of the meat. That layer is your seal. Let the jars cool to room temperature, uncovered. This takes approximately 1 to 2 hours. As the tallow cools, it will turn from clear yellow to solid white. When fully solid, place the lids on the jars. Label each jar with the date and contents. Store in a cool, dark location. A pantry below 65 degrees Fahrenheit works well. A root cellar is ideal. A refrigerator extends the shelf life significantly. When you are ready to use the meat, simply warm the jar gently in a pan of hot water. The tallow will reliquefy, and the meat will slide right out. The tallow itself is not wasted. Use it for cooking. It is excellent for frying and sautéing. 1 pound of tallow can be reused multiple times. 2 signs that a jar is safe. The tallow seal is fully intact with no cracks or gaps, and there is no off smell when you open it. 2 signs to discard without question. Any visible mold on the surface of the tallow, or a sour, rancid, or unusual odor when the jar is opened. If in doubt, throw it away, and recommends refrigeration for 100% safety. What you just learned is not a trick. It is not a hack. It is a skill, a real, practical, field-tested skill that sustained families through winters, wars, and grid failures for several hundred years. The pressure canning industry did not replace this method because it was better. It replaced it because it was sellable. You are not a consumer of survival gear. You are a producer of your own food security. That is the difference between someone who buys a system and someone who understands one. So get a pot, find a local butcher, and ask for beef suet. Cook some meat this weekend. Not because the grid is going down tomorrow, but because this is a skill that belongs in your hands, not on a product page. If this gave you something real today, hit the like button and subscribe. We cover skills here, not gear lists, not sponsored kits. Real methods from people who actually solved real problems. We will see you in the next one.